Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
After an impressive run in their first 5 matches of the 2024-25 season, collecting 18 points each, both La Rochelle and Bordeaux-Bègles are pumped up with high energy and eagerness to elevate their winning mentality to the highest level. Witness the collision of two giants, the top 14 rugby contest between La Rochelle and Union Bordeaux-Bègles on Sunday, 20 October at 9 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
It is Shakana coming through, featuring Kyle Deutsch on this one. Back to the Beach is the name of this particular song. I think it came out, if memory serves correct, around about 2015, somewhere around there. It was the official debut single. And really, this song came out to much fanfare. It dominated. It came out beginning portion of the year, if I remember, and then it had a year-long run. As everybody sort of built up the hype around the release as well as the artists, and by the time we got to December that year, every Instagram post had this song as a caption. And it was long before, those of you who are active on social media and have sort of seen the genesis of social media, it was long before platforms like Instagram decided to integrate music soundtrack onto the post. So all people could do was just post the lyrics of the song, the chorus of the song as they caption. Without really overlaying the music to the actual post. But it was an incredible collaboration. And I think it also it just set Shekhinah up for an incredible career in collaboration with her longtime producer, Sketchy Bongo, who also worked on the song. And since then, she's gone on to collaborate with the likes of Black Coffee on another wonderful song called Your Eyes, which is a dance hit. That is how we kick off the show this afternoon. I hope you're having a great one. It's freakishly hot today, but I guess it is summer, right? But it is rather hot our side of the world today. Beautiful weather nonetheless. It's clear. And this is what we love about the rain. Once it comes and it sort of washes all the dust away, especially these parts of inland, these parts of the country, and it washes the dust away. Once everything is settled, the sky just looks bluer, the clouds look whiter, the grass is always greener. And I was saying to my producers that I haven't seen sort of the jacaranda cover. When I look out from the 6th floor window and I look at the suburbs right sort of surrounding us, when we're looking at Greenside, Rosebank, the parks, and just to paint you a picture of what we see from our vantage point. And normally you can see the purple jacarandas just covering this entire view. It's taken some time, but now that we've seen some rain, hopefully everything is going to be in full bloom. Thank you for sticking around on the station, SAFM. It is the Full Circle, myself, Bridget Masinga. We've got lots of show today. We're still exploring conversations around Transport Month as we wind up October. So we're going to be observing World Trauma Day today, and we're focusing on safeguarding the lives of children against traumatic brain injuries. We've had a similar conversation before, and when I drive, I still see a lot of motorists still not conscious about this behavior and how it could lead to the unfortunate death of their children. So we're going to have this conversation around just keeping kids safe on the roads, because really it is the leading cause of death to healthy children in South Africa, road accidents. So we're going to have this conversation. And then we're also going to be catching up with Nomsa Managa, who is the founder of Nomsa Managa's Dance Beat. And she's activating once again for the 4th annual Nomsa Managa Dance Beat. So we're going to walk, run, and dance it all out in the name of cancer. And then on the other side of 2 o'clock, we're going to have a legal conversation, and we're taking a closer look at labor laws governing employer-funded education. So that conversation is coming up on the other side. 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line, and 086-000-2032 is the number that you can call us on.
And we went on a water safari, and Mom spotted a hippo, and it said, "Grrr."
There is a place where you can see wonder and the wild, with breathtaking scenery and endless landscapes. Enjoy good food and embrace great taste.
And the next day we went to the Reed Dance. I saw the maidens handing over reeds to the mighty Zulu king, and the Zulu warriors chanting, "Baye!"
Explore all this and more in the magical Zulu Kingdom.
This message is brought to you by KZN Tourism and Film Authority.
Fizzy drinks and fruit juices are making our kids sick. Sugar is dumped into their bodies with every sip, leading to obesity, heart disease, and diabetes as they get older. We need to protect our kids from all sugary drinks. Demand a stronger health promotion levy now. Sign the petition on healer.org. That's HEALA.org.
South African Airways is expanding in the DRC. We now offer direct flights from Johannesburg to Lubumbashi, the heart of the DRC's mining hub. Our convenient arrival time allows seamless connections to key regions like Ndola and the Copper Belt, opening up new growth opportunities. traders can benefit from our generous baggage allowance, while SAA's superior aircraft belly capacity ensures your cargo reaches most parts of Congo on the same day. Book now at flysaa.com or contact your travel agent. South African Airways, connecting Africa to the world, one flight at a time.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
How often do you buckle up your kid? How often do you buckle up your kid in the car? Do you have a car seat that is appropriate for your toddler or your little preschooler that, secures them to the back seat of the car? Just putting it out there for you to ponder on as we have this conversation. 06141041070860002032. We're catching up now with Dr. Ngobile Tango, who is a consultant pediatric neurosurgeon at the Red Cross War Memorial Children's Home. According to Arrive Alive, car safety seats reduce the risk of death in passenger cars by 71% for infants and 54% for toddlers, right? So we thought we'd have this conversation because the African Brain Child Research Group, ABC, in pediatric neurosurgery at the University of Cape Town has partnered with various stakeholders to safeguard the lives of children against traumatic brain injuries by putting more children into secure car safety seats this coming October. The good doctor, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Bridget. Thank you for the invite and greetings to your listeners.
Thank you for carving out the time. So today is World Trauma Day, and I guess firstly, let's just talk about the purpose of the day, and about the work that perhaps that you do at the African Brain Child.
Great. So as we know, the 17th of October is World Trauma Day, and trauma is a serious public health concern, and most traumas occur in our low and middle income countries such as South Africa. They also really, Bridget, result in a huge socio-economic burden on our healthcare systems. But the most important thing for the public to remember is that they are largely preventable. So the aim for today is to raise awareness on how different sectors and the public can work together and play a role in reducing the impact of trauma within our communities. And just a bit about our ABC group. We're a team of scientists, neurosurgeons, and medical doctors who are on a quest to better understand and treat brain injury in children. As you've mentioned, we're based at the Red Cross Children's Hospital in Cape Town and affiliated with the University of Cape Town. Thank you.
And talking about, the prevalence of traumatic brain injury, how prevalent is it in South Africa, and who's at most risk?
Yeah, so TBI, traumatic brain injuries, affect a large portion of the South African public, and unfortunately it largely impacts the young, and these are the future of our society. So population studies have shown that the incidence, so for our listeners, incidence is the rate of new cases that can occur in a population at a specific time. The incidence shows two peaks. So the first peak is within our very young, which is the 0 to 3 age group, and then older children, which is the 15 to 18 years age group.
So 0 to 3 and 18 to 15, those are the peak age groups for traumatic brain injury. And tell me, by way of, just the factors and the causes that aid to these unfortunate numbers.
Yeah. So there's a lot of factors that aid in it. So road traffic accidents are the largest contributors within our society and have devastating consequences on the developing brain. And then when we look at the injury itself, Bridget, it occurs in two stages. So there's the primary, which occurs at the scene of the injury, and that's irreversible. So that's what separates our survivors from the non-survivors. And the ones that actually survive, the clock starts ticking for them because immediately secondary brain injury can occur, and this occurs at a physiological and biochemical level. So the cells get starved of oxygen and nutrients and are exposed to high pressure. So as clinicians, this is what we aim to treat when we are treating TBI. And the effects of this on the developing brain are devastating if not treated adequately, and the long-term inflammation can be seen on years after injury in children that are affected by the condition.
I want to stick on sort of, this portion of the information for a little bit, Dr. Ngobile, if you'll indulge me, just so that we better understand in part the severity of the situation, right? So you spoke about primary injury at the scene, and this being a determinant of whether or not someone survives or doesn't survive. What conditions would I guess position one for the negative, for the adverse? What kind of, are there behaviors or things that we should be doing that would position one to have a better outcomes if they are involved in a traumatic incident or accident at the scene?
Absolutely. So one of the major preventative factors that we can do is make sure that we're all wearing a seatbelt and ensure that our children are safe within car seats. This kind of limits the effects on impact in terms of being extravated out of the vehicle or having devastating head injuries. So that's the main thing, ensuring safety within the car and that we all buckle up. This really tends to decrease the impact along with driving behavior.
And a lot of people really don't like, I see it all the time because I think it was last year, round about this time, we had a conversation with a colleague of yours in neurosurgery. And still, between then and now, every other day on the road, you see in this age group, 0 to 3, not in the back seat, not buckled up, not in a car seat. And I appreciate the economic situation around car seats, right? But there just seems to be this unconsciousness of the severity of the situation.
Absolutely. And this is where such campaigns, which is the Be Quick to Click Car Seat Drive campaign, come into play. And this is a campaign we're running in association with Wheel Well, a non-profit organization for children and road safety, and Super Quick Tire. And they're there to raise awareness, but also the reality is, Bridget, car seats are expensive and for many South Africans are unaffordable and viewed as a luxury. So in this campaign, in the spirit of Ubuntu that our Rainbow Nation is known for, the public is encouraged to donate or sponsor car seats for those in need to be able to utilize them.
Let's and I definitely, I'm going to get the finer details of the campaign towards the end of our conversation. For anyone listening, if you do want to get involved in the campaign, we'll definitely get to that. I also want to find out, you talk about sort of the long-term effects for those children, particularly who do survive a traumatic brain injury, that there are long-term life effects. Tell us more about what those look like.
Absolutely. So, Bridget, they can be grouped into 3. So it's cognitive, physical, and psychosocial. And this is where our allied health professionals like our physios, occupational therapists, speech therapists, and social workers play a vital role. So when we talk of cognitive, it's our ability to be involved in a conscious intellectual activity. That means our thinking, reasoning, or remembering. And children that are affected by these injuries can have problems with schooling and have problems with carrying out daily activities such as washing themselves, feeding themselves, or communicating with their family and peers. And then when we look at the physical aspects, depending on which part of the brain is injured, this can affect their walking, their standing, their balance, and coordination. And then the last one, which is also often silent and devastating, is the psychosocial impacts these injuries have on families and communities. A lot of the time when a child is injured, there needs to be a caregiver in the hospital with them, and a lot of the caregivers actually lose employment, and this affects family structures. And also after the injuries, we have personality changes such as aggression and depression, and these can have influences on the family and also the community at large.
But because my understanding is a fully grown adult's brain, even just the skull that houses everything, is completely different to a 3-year-old's, right? Like,
Absolutely.
am I to assume a 3-year-old's tender, fragile, all those things?
Absolutely. You've hit it on the nail. So there's a few things. So the biggest brain development occurs between 0 to 3 years of age. And the most important thing that protects us as adults is our skull. During that age, the skull is very thin. So that's not as protective as an adult skull. Another thing to remember is the head shape in relation to the body. The head size is largely bigger, so they are prone to having more forceful injuries on top of having a thinner bone that doesn't really fully protect the brain.
And I almost feel that when we have these conversations, to paint that gruesome picture, because it might help somebody who's listening to us who is not being deliberate about not buckling up. Their toddler or their child, are not insisting that their teenager buckle up, because we also have this culture of not buckling up. How many of us have grown up with malumes and dads who, when they get in the car, they're like, hey, this thing, young irritator. And now that cars have sensor technology, I know I can't drive 500 meters without my car literally making so much noise that it's unbearable because I've not buckled up. So some people just buckle up behind them just to stop the car from making the noise. But they're not actually using the car seat the car seat as it's supposed to be. But let's take a quick pause here for the headline news, and then we'll come back on the other side and continue our conversation with Dr. Ngobile.
Very much, Bridge, and a very good afternoon. In your headlines at 1:30, ke Modupi Makgalemele. Basic Education Minister Siviwe Kwagube says major budget cuts in her department are affecting the efficiency of the education system. Sports Minister Gayton McKenzie says the 800,000 rand expenditure for the Paris Olympics is within the bounds of the ministerial handbook. And Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has urged EU leaders gathered in Brussels to accept his plan to force Russia through military means and diplomacy to end the war. And those are your headlines. A full news update, 2 o'clock.
Bridget Masinga, weekdays on The Full Circle.
Good afternoon, Sister Bridget. It's Fred the Tracker. Sister Bridget, it is sad to have people driving around, especially during the weekend. You've got people who are driving with their kids in their nice cars. They open the sunroof. The kids are out there, the sunroof. Some are having their legs on the dashboard. Sister Bridget, it is sad. Because what will happen when you brake that car and you're driving at 120 kilometers per hour? That means that child is going to fly at 120 kilometers per hour coming out of the car. And if you have your legs on the dashboard, that means those legs, we're gonna find them in your stomach, which is not a good picture. So please buckle up. Danko.
Right? We really don't think about it. I was parked here the other day downstairs at SABC, and one of my colleagues from Kwekwezi was driving out, and I happened to just have my car door open, and they literally stopped me and they said, "Do you always have your seat that far forward?" And my seat wasn't really far forward, but it had crossed the middle line of where my front door and my back door, so that halfway point of your doors. And they were like, "Do you always have your seat that far forward?" And I got a 10-minute lecture about, should anything happen and the airbag deploys and the injury that you could get from the impact of the airbag deploying. And I literally, Dr. Ngobile, had to explain that, no, I don't have it that far forward. In fact, I always keep to the middle line. It's just because before he had seen me, I was reaching for something in the back, and so I'd pushed the seat forward a little bit, you know. But it was that kind of just, and I used it as a reminder again, because at times we don't even realize that our behavior is changing. You know, and it changes incrementally. And before you know it, it's been one day where you're quickly jumping in the car with the kids to just go to the local Pick and Pay or the Woolworths. It's just down the road, a kilometer or so, and no one's buckled up. You know, or we're leaning forward because we're telling mom the story after school, and we're so impassioned, and she must hear us because she's busy driving. And it becomes one day and 1 week, and before you know it, it's now just the norm, and we've forgotten until something tragic happens. And that's the unfortunate part, and this is why we're having this conversation on Transport Month. It's Transport Month this month, by the way. Let's also talk around, you know, we've spoken about just the affordability factor of seat belts, right? But I also want to know, is it law, is it legislated in South Africa, for instance, to have a car seat for an infant? I know in some first world countries you can't even leave a hospital without your infant, you know, showing that there is a car seat for your infant.
Yeah, so absolutely. So we are fortunate to have good laws within South Africa. So the Regulation 213 of the National Road Traffic Act states all children below the age of 3 years must be in a car seat. And for children that are greater than 3 years of age and under the height of 1.5 meters, must be in a car seat if one is available. And the important thing to note, the car seats must be certified, and they also must be appropriate for your child's age, weight, and height, because there's different types of car seats. So, Bridget, I'm 1.58, so I'm a centimeter away from being in a booster seat. But there are strict rules on this, and we're fortunate to have this within our country.
Yeah. What do we say to those parents whose, you know, toddlers, once they start getting mouthy at age 3 or 4, and they don't want to get in the car seats? I also have a friend who her baby just never liked the car seat, you know, would scream bloody murder just at the sight of a car seat.
So, you know, the first step is what we're doing today, education and advocacy. So, you know, by SAFM giving us a platform to discuss this important topic, it helps the public and parents to be equipped with tools to protect their children and be aware that this is actually a serious public health concern within our communities. And also, as a community, we really need to be vigilant. It is human nature to want to believe something can never happen to you. But the reality is, as you highlighted, a simple trip down the road to the grocery shop can be your lost and your family's lost if you do not take these precautions. So in essence, you know, the whole family should be quick to click, no matter how short the journey may be. And the long-term benefits of such behavior is that it forms safety habit formation for your child, and the community are exposed and learn the importance of the car seats and seat belts, and this sets the foundation for lifelong safe driving habits. So really we need to start young in terms of educating our children.
I mean, disturbing figure, 96% of the children admitted after a severe traumatic brain injury that was sustained by them in a motor vehicle accident were not wearing a seatbelt. 98%. We can have the argument about car seats, affordability, access, and it's a valid argument for the majority of South African families. But your car has a seatbelt.
Exactly. And that 96% were actually, you know, children within which sustained severe traumatic brain injury. So that means they're in the ICU. That means only 4 out of 96 children actually had a seat belt. So that's the importance of having these preventative campaigns, because it shows also the severity of an injury that it can occur in a child that isn't fastened safely.
Let's go to WhatsApp quickly and hear what are you thinking around this conversation.
Good afternoon, Sister V. Malsalena Mpumalanga, but original from Limpopo. Sister Bridget, car seats are essential, but then they are so expensive. They are so expensive as if they are a luxury, but then they are a necessity. for the safety of the child, they are necessary for one to have in their life. But then I think the pricing behind them is that if you can afford a car, you can afford a car seat. Maybe that's why they're so pricey. Other than that, it's just plastic, sponges, and chairs. And belts, because that car seat does have seat belts of its own. You understand? So I do have one for my son. When he was still an infant, I bought one. Now he's a bit of a toddler at the age of 3. I have bought another one. But then I don't think every South African can afford it unless they sacrifice whatever that they have to sacrifice in order to buy it. Thank you.
Absolutely, a very valid point. And it's one of those catch-22 situations, because I think what you say there could be the marketing angle that a lot of the car seat manufacturers do use, maybe. Where, they're thinking of, well, if you can afford a car, then you can afford a car seat. But we know that the two don't really correlate that way. But some would probably use that as an argument. And I think it should be something that is made affordable, but also made up to code, right? Because not every car seat will do what the car seat is supposed to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Doc Ngobile, I want to talk about the campaign as well. Like we had our caller, he bought a car seat when his baby was an infant. Now they're a toddler, they're in a toddler-sized car seat. There's a lot of families that have car seats lingering around in garages, kind of thinking that they'll hand it over to some family member, and maybe the family members never have babies, or the family members decide to buy their own car seats, or they get gifted car seats. Where do we take all these unused car seats that are still very much in good condition?
Wow, fantastic question. And the last speaker was a perfect example of that. So we're running the Be Quick to Click car seat drive campaign. And as I've mentioned earlier, we're running it together with Super Quick Tire and Wheel Well. So what our listeners can do is that they can visit our website. The website is bequicktoclick.com, and you can get information on which Super Quick branch you can drop off the car seat. And if you do not have a car seat but you would still like to donate, there is also a link that you can press and donate towards this worthy cause. Alternatively, you can visit our ABC website, africanbrainchild.com, and you can click on the Be Quick to Click campaign, and you'll be able to get further information. And we really hope the public will be able to donate as many seats as possible, and these can be given to families in need.
Absolutely. We appreciate your time indeed. I think hopefully this conversation has gotten through to somebody for a little bit of a change behavior. So bequicktoclick.com is where you can go. And you'll be able to then locate where you can donate your unused car seat, or you can also Google the African Brainchild and find out from them as well where you can also go. That was Dr. Ngobile Tango, who is a consultant pediatric neurosurgeon at the Red Cross War Memorial Children's Hospital. So let's prevent this, right? Road accidents are the single biggest killer of healthy children in South Africa. It is a preventable thing by way of just also how we drive, our behavior as drivers on the road, but also just being safe with our children. Buckle them up. I know there's the conversation on the flip side around seat belts and children under a particular age, and all of that. But let's rather buckle up where we can, take the necessary safe measures, take the children out of the front seat, put them in the back seat, make sure that they are buckled up and safe. And if you do have a car seat that you're no longer using, even if you don't want to necessarily donate it to this campaign, which I don't know why you wouldn't, it's a great campaign, your nearest church, there's always someone in church having a baby, and you can just pass it on there. It's just gone 22 at 2 o'clock.
My name is Bonolo Motuba. I'm 17. My school was far from home and my parents were spending large amounts on transport. That's why they moved me to UCT Online High School, and it's been amazing. With savings on transport and uniforms, I was able to get ahead and stay ahead. Visit uctonlinehighschool.com to learn more. Applications close 29 November 2024.
Fizzy drinks and fruit juices are making our kids sick. Sugar is dumped into their bodies with every sip, leading to obesity, heart disease, and diabetes as they get older. We need to protect our kids from all sugary drinks. Demand a stronger health promotion levy now. Sign the petition on heala.org. That's HEALA.org.
After an impressive run in their first 5 matches of the 2024-25 season, collecting 18 points each, both La Rochelle and Bordeaux-Bègles are pumped up with high energy and eagerness to elevate their winning mentality to the highest level. Witness the collision of two giants, the top 14 rugby contest between La Rochelle and Union Bordeaux-Bègles on Sunday, 20 October at 9 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Stages, pages, screens, and more with Bridget Masinga.
We continue with conversations that move you on SAFM this afternoon. Stages, pages, screens, and more. As you've just heard, we're catching up with founder and pioneer of Nomsa Managa Dance Beat. We are running, walking, and dancing it out, all in the name of cancer. And it's the 4th annual Walking and Dancing Out of Cancer, a 2-day event taking place on the 26th and the 27th of October at the Soweto Theatre. How are you doing, Nomsa? You good?
I'm awesome. I'm so awesome. I'm so excited. I can't wait for next week. I'm so excited.
We love it. We love to hear the excitement in your voice. So this is, you build this as a purpose-led sport, artainment, lifestyle showcase. Tell us more.
That's right. So what this is all about is that you learn, you come to the concert, you come to the walk, you learn about cancer. You leave there saying, oh wow, so this is what it's all about. That's what it's all about, sport entertainment, So we address issues through the arts, through entertainment, so that you don't sit in your little corner and say, I am sick, I am this. No. So you come there, you get out of your sickness. We inspire you when you have cancer to say, that's not a death sentence. Get out of it. We say thank you to the caregivers. We say thank you to those survivors, celebrating them through entertainment. And we'll be walking. We're creating a new awareness through the walk as we walk through, navigate the streets of Soweto. That is where sports come in,
Yeah.
So yeah. That's what we're all about.
And I love the fact that, you using this event as a reminder of a life yet to be lived, right? A sort of galvanizing to the other side of it. Because from what I read, it also very much sort of flows along the theme of your own personal story, surviving ovarian cancer. And the role that your son Mac played in sort of getting you over that sort of hump of this can't be it.
Yeah. Oh no, definitely. So the very same way I was inspired by my son to say, Mama, just write a book and call it Dancing Out of Cancer. And that's what inspired me. And through that inspiration, the very same way I was inspired is the same way I am inspiring other people. Hence, we're doing this Dancing Out of Cancer. That come on the 26th, come on the 27th, come and listen to speakers who will be speaking about their experiences. Come and enjoy the artists who are going to be there, who are going to inspire you with their music. So you cannot leave the concert both Saturday and Sunday without being inspired. If you have cancer, you will leave and say, but cancer, who is cancer? Cancer is not my friend, you know? As a survivor, you'll be like, wow, I'm so glad I lived. I'm here. I'm celebrating life.
Yeah.
And a caregiver, you'll be saying, I'm so glad I contributed in the well-being of other people. You see?
I love it. Tell me this, Nomsa, because it takes a while to sort of get to the other side, right? It takes a while or everyone's journey is different, but being in rooms with particularly women who've gone through a cancer diagnosis and they recount those journeys. For you, what was the mind shift? What was the mind shift, that moment or that conversation, that thing that had you looking at it differently?
Because I realized I still had so much in me. There was still so much life in me, you know? And I was like, cancer, you're not my friend. I don't know you. And when I took that decision, I said, no, me and cancer are not friends. You know, I'm going to embrace it and I'm going to move forward and I'm going to win this battle. And I did exactly that because I still have a lot in me to live, to enjoy this beautiful life. And that's what I'm doing.
Wonderful stuff. So on the 26th and the 27th, that's over the weekend at Soweto Theatre, we are all together. Entice the folks a little bit about, what can they expect over the 2 days?
Listen, you just cannot. Please, everybody, South Africa, Joe Beckers, come. Come and be enthralled by Sipho Mabu's Hot Sticks, you know, Judith Sipuma, Wanda Baloyi, Unati, DJ Bilal, Mac will be there doing his poetry, Ntsiki Mazwai, Kenny will be there. So guys, you just cannot. We have a great lineup. And the beauty about this, right, is that these artists, these big names that we have on the billing list, is they gave their time because they understand, this debilitating disease that we need to create more awareness, more especially in the township, right? The proceeds are going to CHOC. CHOC stands for Childhood Cancer Foundation. And the work that CHOC is doing is amazing in the houses that they have for children with cancer. So we thought, Lerona, we should also contribute, create this awareness. And so the money that we raise is going to CHOC. And we are pleading with people out there, with donors, with corporate, to say, please come and support us. We need you to make this happen. We are still raising funds. We even have donation packages. We have from 10,000 to 50,000 to say, please, whatever you have, just donate it to us. There are kids who want to walk on Sunday. The walk is on Sunday. It starts at 8 o'clock. It's a 5 kilometer and an 8 kilometer. Then after that is the festival. So rather that those who really want to come, but they can't afford. So please, if you are listening, come, but you would have bonused. It's only the 26th, you'd be having money. So please use it, donate, be generous, just give. Even if you're not attending, but just donate. Somebody will benefit from your donation.
Lovely stuff. We wish you the very best of success for the upcoming festival, of course. That is happening on the last weekend of October 26th and 27th over the 2 days, featuring the likes of the legendary, my favorite old man. We got lots of mutual love for each other there. Sipho Hot Sticks Mabuze is going to be on the stage. Wanda Baloyi, the list goes on of incredible artists that are lending their names and their talents to this cause. A lot of them being natives of Soweto as well, which is a wonderful thing to see. and Nomsa Managa Dance Beat has partnered up with the Childhood Cancer Foundation South Africa, CHOC, in order for all the proceeds to be donated to CHOC. They do incredible work with kids that have been diagnosed with a variety of cancers. So it's a walk in good faith, this one, for a good cause. Nomsa, it was just a pleasure, and we hope to see this walk in 10 years' time, still going strong. It is the 4th annual Walking and Dancing Out of Cancer 2-day event. Let's take a quick pause and then we'll come back and we'll catch up with the adjudicator of a different festival, the 31st Zwagala Festival.
Stages, pages, screens, and more with Bridget Masinga.
We are catching up now with Tsepo Ratuna, who is a adjudicator and playwright, as well as a director. And we're talking around the 31st Zwagala Festival that's hosted by the Market Theatre Foundation. It celebrates a vibrant new wave of storytellers and theatre talent. It's about to wrap up, though. It's going to wrap up on the 20th. Well, it's about to start and wrap up. Let me put it that way, because it's starting tomorrow and it's running until the 20th at the Market Theatre Laboratory. How are you doing, Tsepo?
Good, Bridget. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Cannot complain. 31 versions, 31 editions of Zwagala Festival. Let's reflect back on that firstly, because 31 in my mind, I'm assuming 3 decades.
Yes, that's a very long time, and Zwagala Festival is getting stronger each year. This is a community festival that has been unearthing talent in South Africa for the past 31 years. A lot of directors, writers, and actors started in this platform, and they've gone to become South African stars. So yeah, it's a very good festival, probably the best we have now in the country.
Yeah. Talk to me about, the festival's objective over the years. And we did say that it celebrates a vibrant new wave of storytellers. But, what is sort of the objective or motivation of the festival?
Absolutely. I think primarily is to unearth original stories, new and unique concepts that speak to the creators' immediate communities, but also have a global appeal. Because this festival is a platform to just launch your career, and we don't want you to have a staging at just this festival. We want these plays to live longer and reach a larger audience. So what we encourage is that creativity and originality, and speaking to your community, and then we know. These are plays that will not die at the Zwagala Festival, but they will, we'll see them grow and become mainstream productions.
So
yes.
Primarily, the entrants are community-based theatre makers, right? Talk to me
Yes,
about
absolutely.
the selection process, how you go about that, because I'm thinking you obviously are casting your net nationally when you call for entrance.
Yes. So there's a lot of showcases by a lot of young people from different regions in the country. And we go through the process of selecting what we know can be workable, can be manageable. And then there's field workers who go into these spaces and go to their community halls, develop that talent, and nurture them, workshop their scripts, workshop their directing skills. And then from then on, we move into the process of bringing about 16 productions to showcase. And then we also judge those and select 8 of the best. And from that 8, we select 4 of the best, which you will be seeing participating from the 18th until the 20th of October this year.
So there's quite a rigorous process before we even get to the festivals that are going to be staged, over the 2 days. It sounds like there's quite a rigorous process of development and growth, even just at the infantile stages of selection.
Yes, absolutely. So the people who participate in the festival, even if they do not get to the stage, there's a wealth of experience and skills that they get from just participating in the festival at its primary stages. Because these mentors give them proper feedback, and some of them try again in the following year, and go to the next round, and some of them go on to win this festival. So there's an educational program that runs before we get to this last 4 days or 2 days of the festival. So there's a lot that happens in this festival for participants.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, at this stage, it's too late for anybody to enter the 2024 edition of the festival, because now we're just presenting the work that's made it to the final stages.
Yes.
I've fast run out of time, but I do want to get just a little teaser in our last minute of what perhaps is on the agenda over the 2 days.
Well, these incredible 4 plays by young creators. We've got Mollo, a beautiful production presented by Teboho Serapelo. And we've got Khetsi, we've got another one, we've got Pieces of a Woman, an incredible one-hander by a very talented young woman. And lastly, we have a production called Fatherhood, which is like 4 young boys from Alexandra who just talk about their relationship with their fathers and just how that has been like. All have different fathers, and what are those relationships like. They just go into the depth of what it means to have a father or to not have a father. So the audiences and theater lovers can come and join us and have an incredible time at the Market Theater. Unfortunately, yes, it's late for anyone to join now, but you can still buy a ticket and come and enjoy the experience at the Market Theater.
It sounds a good day out or a good weekend out for theatre goers. You get to be introduced to some young local talents that are still bubbling under within their communities. And in a few years' time, when they become, nationally and internationally recognized practitioners, you are then able to say, oh, I remember when they staged that first bit of work.
When they started. Absolutely. You can identify your artists here and follow them throughout their careers.
Absolutely. Tsepo, thank you so much for the time. That was Tsepo Ratuna, who is, of course, one of the adjudicators at the Zwagala Festival, also wrapping up 31 years of the festival, and they're hosting come tomorrow, so from tomorrow until the 20th of October, over those 2 days at the Market Theatre Laboratory is where you can go and see what is on the agenda for this year's festival. It's the top of the hour. Madupi Makhalemele is standing by with your 2 o'clock news bulletin, and then we'll be back on the other side of this.
Thank you very much, Sister Bridge. The top stories is our life behind bars for Eastern Cape killers, and Mackenzie explains his Olympic spill. A very good afternoon. The 4 members of the Mangoba Seven Angels Ministries Church in the Eastern Cape have been sentenced to life in prison. They were sentenced in the Mthatha High Court yesterday. They were involved in the murders of 5 police officers during an attack on the Ngobo police station in 2018 and took at least 10 firearms and ammunition. Olwetu Matsipani reports.
A crime that shocked the quiet Eastern Cape town to its core. It also brought about changes in safety features at the police station. The police also raided the Mangoba Seven Angels Ministries, and a shootout left 7 of the suspected robbers dead. The compound was also closed down. The sentencing comes more than 6 years after the crime was committed. One of the gang members, Sipesihle Tansi, was sentenced last year to a maximum of 18 years in prison after he pleaded guilty to the murders.
Basic Education Minister Siviwe Kwagube says that major budget cuts in her department are affecting the efficiency of the education system. She says the department has the huge task of ensuring that each class has a balanced teacher and learner ratio. Kwagube is in Bloemfontein in the Free State as part of her national listening and learning tour to the different provinces.
You know, overcrowding in schools will affect the outcomes of education at the end of the day. So those are some of the things we are seeing. Infrastructure is also a very common theme. I'm going to be going around the province today. I know that they are not specifically one of the provinces that are affected necessarily by issues around pit toilets as such in the backlog that we need to deal with. But infrastructure is a huge problem, whether it's maintenance of infrastructure, whether it's appropriate sanitation, whether it's building of new schools. We know that this is a huge Achilles heel for us as a sector.
Sports Minister Gayton McKenzie says the 800,000 rand expenditure for the Paris Olympics is within the bounds of the ministerial handbook. There's been complaints about exorbitant amounts spent on that trip. McKenzie says his job is to go to sporting events and his attendance cannot be compared to superfan Mama Joy.
Internationally, the ministerial handbook demands of me to fly business and not first class. I'm mentioning this so that people can know I've not done anything outside the ministerial handbook. I got there, I saw them saying, Mr. McKenzie, welcome, welcome, jump in the car. Now it's being acted like I'm sitting behind a computer and go to the different airlines, which things. There are people that are hired for those. Now, if you want to play politics, it's fine. But don't play politics only with me. If I have to account, which I'm doing, we expect every minister to also account.
President Cyril Ramaphosa says the government is considering introducing incentives for vehicle manufacturers and subsidies for consumers to accelerate the adoption of electric vehicles in South Africa. He says it is imperative that South Africa grows and maintains its role in the global supply chain of electric vehicles. He was speaking during SA Auto Week at the Cape Town International Convention Center.
Consideration must be given to incentives for manufacturers, as well as what will please you, tax rebates or subsidies for consumers to accelerate uptake of electric vehicles. This is not just about creating a greener future, but also about ensuring South Africa remains competitive in the global market.
And Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has urged the EU leaders gathered in Brussels to accept his plan to force Russia through military means and diplomacy to end the war. His plan includes a demand for NATO membership and permission to use Western long-range missiles. Zelensky says Ukraine and its allies must continue to apply pressure on Russia to accept what he called a just peace.
We are ready to put the victory plan on your table and accounting on your support. Ukraine is ready for real diplomacy, but for it, we must be strong. Forcefully imposed truce instead of fair peace never provided security.
The top story this hour, 4 members of the Mangoba Seven Angels Ministries Church in the Eastern Cape have been sentenced to life in prison. The Full Circle continues for SAFM News. Kemudupi Makhalemeli.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen.
And we went on a water safari, and Mom spotted a hippo, and it said,
There is a place where you can see wonder and the wild, with breathtaking scenery and endless landscapes. Enjoy good food and embrace great taste.
And the next day we went to the Reed Dance. I saw the maidens handing over wreaths to the mighty Zulu king, and the Zulu warriors chanting, Baye!
Explore all this and more in the magical Zulu Kingdom.
This message is brought to you by KZN Tourism and Film Authority.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
South African Airways is expanding in the DRC. We now offer direct flights from Johannesburg to Lubumbashi, the heart of the DRC's mining hub. Our convenient arrival time allows seamless connections to key regions like Ndola and the Copper Belt, opening up new growth opportunities. Traders can benefit from our generous baggage allowance, while SAA's superior aircraft belly capacity ensures your cargo reaches most parts of Congo on the same day. Book now at flysaa.com or contact your travel agent. South African Airways, connecting Africa to the world, one flight at a time.
The Rockets say before the sun sets in Mpumalanga, they will march out of the battlefield with a VIP access to the quarterfinals. However, the Chili Boys are not shaken. They want joy for the Eastern Cape citizens. This is the second edition of the Carlin Knockout Cup Round of 16. Fagukesi! Catch TS Galaxy FC versus Chipa United FC this Sunday, 20 October at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC1 and SABC radio stations. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
Yeah. It is Bongo Muffin, the one. Grow Up and You Will See is the song. All right, so we're shifting focus now. It is Thursday after 2. So what we tend to do on Thursdays after 2 o'clock, as I'm sure you've noticed over the course of the last year, almost 2 years now, is that we indulge conversations around legal matters, right? We try and understand our way around recent judgments, as well as just legal questions that sometimes are posed to us by our listeners, and then we try and bring that in conversation. So today, we're going to be looking at what labor laws say around employer-funded education. There was a recent judgment by the Gauteng High Court that ruled in favor of an employer when an employee who was funded for her studies resigned and left the company before the agreed amount of time that was required to stay within the company after the completion of their studies. So we want to find out more about sort of the legal expectations, obligations within this particular scenario, as well as maybe conditions of the agreement and things of that nature. 086 000 2032 is the studio call-in number. And of course, the 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line if you want to send through a WhatsApp voice note. Here's the thing we've noticed when we have these conversations around legal matters, medical matters, things that are informative to our general existence, is that you always wait until the very last minute to send in your query or your perspective, your opinion, or your challenging opinion. And by that time, our guest is gone and we've moved on to the next conversation. So when we ask you to please send it through, you don't have to wait to hear and get more clarity around what exactly we are talking about. If you think that there's something that you want to say or something that you want to ask that relates to what we're talking about, rather send it in quickly, because then retrospectively, I cannot answer you because I'm not the expert. 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line. That's where you can send your WhatsApp voice note. And 086 000 2032 is the number that you can call us on. Right, we've got Faith Mashapa, who is a legal advisor at Strategy. And Faith is joining us. How are you this afternoon, Faith?
Good afternoon.
Fabulous to hear your voice. Thank you for the time and, of course, for helping us understand all of this. We've laid the groundwork. I'm not too familiar about, the case. What I do know is that there was the judgment by the Gauteng High Court that ruled in favor of the employer in this situation, when an employee was funded for her studies, then resigned, left the company before the agreed amount of time that was required to stay with the company after completion of studies. Let me just ask this. I thought that was standard practice.
No, it's not. Unfortunately, that's generally not how it works. If you sign a contract as the employee did in this case, where the company pays for your studies, there's usually conditions that stipulate how long you need to stay with the business before you can resign. In terms of this particular case, the employee had indicated, or had agreed rather, that she would stay with Nissan for a period of 2.5 years after she had completed her studies. She, however, only stayed for 1 year and 3 months, then resigned and joined another company. However, in terms of her agreement, she was not allowed to do so and therefore had breached that agreement. And Nissan then approached the High Court for the repayment of the monies that they had spent sending her through to school. The court eventually then agreed that there was a contract in place and she had breached those conditions and therefore she was liable to pay the company back.
Yeah. So when I say that, I thought it was standard practice, right? Because I often tease on the show and say I have not worked in a formal structure, but really I have, because the organizations I work with in broadcasting are multi-million, hundreds of millions netting companies. So they are formal and very structured like any other business. But my side of it is I'm a contractor, so I have a different sort of employment terms and conditions relationship versus someone who's regarded full-time. So I thought it was just standard when your organization pays for your education, that there is an agreed upon whatever you're going to be of service, and you've got to stay the duration of that. Unless, of course, there's been a different arrangement that has been communicated. Was this employee just taking a chance in breaking that agreement?
Ultimately, employees tend to think that once they've completed their studies, and as was the case with this particular employee, because she had stayed on for a short period of time and she had signed a new contract of employment, she was of the opinion that the agreement she signed for the company to pay for her studies was no longer valid. And therefore, she could leave as soon as she felt it was necessary to do so. However, these types of things are governed in terms of that contract that you signed.
Yeah.
So it's always important to make sure that you read your contract fully and understand what you are binding yourself to.
Yeah.
Before you make decisions to leave the company because you believe you fulfilled the obligations therein.
Absolutely. And if you are fortunate, like my previous employer, who extended this what do we call this anyway? This benefit of study.
Study contract.
Yes, this benefit of study. So they extended it to everybody, whether you were permanent, whether you were a contractor, for as long as you were in the organization, they extended it to everybody. And it was, and I found it uniquely interesting that they didn't place an obligation for you to stay in the organization for X amount of time, and there were people there that were doing their masters and all kinds of things. And after a year and a bit, they left for other organizations. But that is not the standard practice.
So standard practice would generally mean what is governed in terms of your contract. This isn't per se a benefit that's afforded to you in terms of the Basic Conditions of Employment Act. This is an additional separate agreement that the parties enter into, wherein the employer and the employee engage in a conversation, and the employee indicates that they want to study, or in this case, the employer offers an employee the opportunity to study and pay for their studies. In these discussions, standard practice would mean that we discuss what we are going to agree to and we sign on those terms. We are then governed by that agreement that we sign, and that will then govern the relationships and the steps we take while we are studying and after we are done studying, in accordance to what we have agreed upon.
All right. And obviously that speaks to the legal expectation and obligations on both the side of the employer and the employee.
Yes, so both parties would have legal enforcement abilities in terms of the agreement. In any agreement, there are obligations on the side of the employer and on the side of the employee. Where one party fails to complete those obligations, the other party has the ability to approach the court or an arbitration body in terms of whatever the agreement says you need to do where there is a breach. So ultimately, that agreement is what governs that relationship. So if the agreement allows the parties to enforce the rights in the agreement through litigation, then they're more than welcome to do so.
Okay. All right. And in this case, right, was the employee, the former Nissan employee, was she then instructed to pay back the money because she's breached the terms and conditions of the contract?
Yes, the court ordered that she's required to pay back not the full amount that Nissan had claimed, but just over 300,000 with an interest rate at 9% from the date that the employer asked for her to pay until she completes that payment. So she is required in terms of that court order to pay back Nissan. Should she then decide to follow other routes in terms of appealing the judgment, she's then able to do so. But however, as it stands, she's now currently liable to pay the company back.
What a wow. All right. 061-410-4107 by way of reminder is our WhatsApp line. And of course, you can send us a WhatsApp voice note or you can give us a call on 086-000-2032. If we're going to WhatsApp quickly, if the company paid for my studies and at some point I decide to leave the company, can I make a repayment arrangement with the company or am I forced still to stay until I fulfill the contract? And that's coming from Cape Town.
In that instance, you would then need to go back to your employer and have a discussion in terms of what's going to happen now that you intend on leaving the company. It is also very important to make sure that before you have these discussions or before you sign an agreement, you're fully aware of what is required of you. So in this instance, it might be that the company would be willing to let her go as long as if they signed some sort of agreement that stipulates what would happen now that she's left the employee of the company and how then she'd pay them back.
All right. Let's go to the WhatsApp voice note as well. We're on WhatsApp right now, so if you want to send your queries, you're more than welcome to do so.
Hi there, Bridget. I'm not sure if I caught this conversation late. What about public transport?
Oh, I think we probably played the wrong voice note there. They are talking about Transport Month. But as we continue on this conversation, let's also just maybe hone in a little bit on those laws in the labor law that govern the employer funding studies of employees and what those say. Because we obviously can tell from this case that maybe as employees, we're not quite understanding the parameters or the legalese around this conversation.
Yes, so in terms of these type of agreements, as I've indicated, there isn't specific laws that make these agreements available. However, employers are encouraged in terms of the Skills Development Act to develop and train their employees. So this would mean putting whatever training that is available that the employer believes would not only benefit the employee, but at the end of the day, the business. The Skills Development Act does encourage that. And that is when you would then look at what type of funding is available if you're doing it through the SDA, or if you're going to pay for it from your own pocket, what then you would need to do. However, like I've indicated at the beginning, these relationships are governed by that contract of employment or that agreement that indicates that the company is going to pay for your studies.
Is there any sort of recourse? Let's just paint a hypothetical, so you get into this agreement, everything's hunky-dory, they pay for you to go do your master's or whatever it is, and you're quite happy and maybe you're quite content whilst doing that, but then things sour. Management structures change, environment changes, things sour, it becomes unbearable. You go through the process of alerting everybody, HR, header, and it really just becomes unbearable for you to be in that organization now. Is there recourse for an employee in a hypothetical of that nature to then double back to say, I want exit, and I know I still owe you 2 years and X amount of money, but I'm not exiting because essentially I'm not enjoying my job or I've outgrown it. I'm exiting because you can see also my track record of trying to bring to you particular things that have made me unhappy, and there's no move towards bettering or intervening on the situation.
So ultimately, again, this would then be determined by that contract. However, you are always open to renegotiate with your employer and sit and discuss and say, these are the issues that I've been going through. This is what I've been facing, and I've received no joy. And I know that this is what is before me and what I've signed, but I'd like to know what I can do that allows me to be released from this contract and for me to move on to a different space. Then ultimately that conversation would then depend on whatever the parties agree upon. And if they do then decide to get legal parties and legal expertise involved, then they would contact their relevant experts who would then assist them on the best way to navigate in these issues. Most of the agreements would stipulate what needs to be done in these conditions where another party wants to leave the contract or exit because of whatever conditions are facing them at that point in time.
So I'm hearing that, the great emphasis is that there is room for you to go and have a conversation, an open conversation with your employer regarding whatever circumstances at play, or whatever you're feeling. The biggest mistake not to make is to just up and resign, without some kind of conversation and maybe reaching some kind of agreement as to what happens to those monies that have been funded for your education, and potentially working out how you pay that back.
Absolutely, that's correct. It's always important to make sure that whatever you end up agreeing to is reduced to writing, as was the agreement that the employer was going to pay for your studies. It's always what you're then going to go back and fall upon, because that then governs the relationship moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, I think you've gave some sage advice. Faith Mashapa, thank you so much for your time. Faith is a legal advisor at Strategy. We're going to go into a break now, and then, of course, Madupi is bringing you the headline news. On the other side of that, Kids Corner is coming right up.
The SAFM University Debate Challenge will be taking over the Western Cape. Join us for the 1-hour debate on This Week Today with Oliver Dixon from 6 to 7 p.m. on Friday, the 25th of October 2024 at the SABC Cape Town M1 Studios, where the University of Cape Town will be taking on the University of the Western Cape in what promises to be a nail-biting debate. The SAFM University Debate Challenge is an independent, non-partisan progressive initiative seeking to develop confident communicators, critical thinkers, and empowered global citizens. RSVP to info@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The Market Update, Monday to Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m.
Want to stay ahead of the financial game? Join us tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. for an insightful journey through the day's market developments, financial updates, and investment news. Tune in for your daily dose of financial intelligence as we navigate the twists and turns of the financial landscape with expert insights. Only on the SAFM Market Update.
SAFM Market Update with Jimmy Muyaha.
A very good afternoon. With the news headlines at 2:30, ke Modupi Makgalemele. Police have been deployed to Sharpeville in the Vaal after a businessman was fatally shot and shops belonging to foreign nationals looted. 4 members of the Mangoba Seven Angels Church in the Eastern Cape have been sentenced to life in prison. They were involved in the murder of 5 police officers during an attack on the Ngobo police station in 2018. And the Iranian ambassador to South Africa, Mansour Shakib Mehr, says Iran has the capacity to defend itself. Those are your headlines. A full news update coming up 3 o'clock.
This program is brought to you by SABC Education. Enriching minds, enriching lives.
Side by Side.
Good afternoon and welcome to another exciting episode of Side by Side on SAFM, a show brought to you by the National Department of Health, Ilifa la Bantwana, and the SABC Education. On today's show, we outline the important role that a mother plays in a child's life. We know that raising a child comes with lots of challenges, and we want to support you on your journey in raising a healthy and fully developed child. On our previous episode, if you remember, we talked about antenatal care, low birth weight babies, and the importance of nutrition during pregnancy. So today we want to explore nutritious options for the baby after birth, particularly breastfeeding. Our guest for today is Ms. Mogadi Mutati, a dietitian from Western District Health Services. Thank you so much, Ms. Mutati, for joining us today. I want us to start our conversation from here. Breastfeeding is said to be the most encouraged form of nutrition for babies compared to formula. Can you please explain to us why is that?
Thank you so much, Ms. P, for having me today on SAFM. I'm so excited because we are discussing the topic that is very close to my heart. Breastfeeding, it's definitely the best. Actually, I wouldn't even compare it with formula milk. There are many, many reasons why moms worldwide are encouraged to breastfeed their babies, because breast milk is food, it's water and medicine all in one. It's a combo. So the National Department of Health encourages all the moms to breastfeed exclusively for the first 6 months and to continue breastfeeding with the appropriate complementary foods until 2 years or longer.
It's no longer a hearsay that breastfeeding is the best. Now let's explore more reasons why breastfeeding is important.
Breastfeeding has antibodies that strengthens the immune system of the baby, which protects the baby from having pneumonia and diarrhea. It also prevents malnutrition, which are the common cause of death in childhood. It also contains all the nutrients that the baby needs. So we don't have to worry about the baby not getting enough vitamins or protein or carbohydrates. We know breastfeeding contains all of those. It is also cost effective. So you don't have to worry about, I'm not working, I cannot afford it and all that. So the research has also shows that breastfeeding promotes good intellectual and emotional development. And it doesn't only benefit the baby, it also benefits the mother, because it shows that the studies shows that breastfeeding reduces the chances of a mother having diabetes, the breast cancer and the ovarian cancer. So it is just a beautiful food to start the baby with.
Are there any difficulties that mom maybe should know about?
Definitely. So there are difficulties. As much as we are saying breastfeeding is good and all that, yes, there are some challenges that the mothers will face throughout their journey of breastfeeding. Some mothers would worry about, I cannot produce enough milk. My baby cries all day long. So in most cases, that is not the case. You find that the mothers are not latching the baby well. So the positioning attachment is not right. So I would advise the mothers who are having challenges to go to the nearest clinics to consult. There are nurses there, there are dietitians there, where we can help them on how to latch the baby. And some mothers will complain about the sore nipples, the mastitis, and that breastfeeding is tiring and all those. We are aware of all those challenges. But what I can advise the mothers to do is come to the clinic and then we shall assist with those challenges.
One of the things that you've mentioned is the baby not latching correctly, and I think that is one of the challenges that new moms have. To ensure that the baby latches correctly, it's crucial for them to receive enough breast milk. What steps can a mom take to support a baby in feeding effectively?
Yes, it's important that the baby latches well, but then we start with the mother. The mother needs to sit in a comfortable chair or a couch with an armrest, and she needs to relax. You need to relax, because whenever you have a tension, then it's going to be difficult for a baby to latch. So the mom must sit comfortably and then hold the baby, secure the baby nicely and support the head and the neck. I wish I was on TV, because then I was going to demonstrate that. But then if you secure your baby nicely, support the head and the neck, don't bend and take the breasts to the mouth of the baby. Take the nipple, just tickle the nose and the upper lip of the baby so that the baby can open up the mouth wide. And then when the baby starts to open the mouth, just put the nipple in. Make sure that the nipple is fully inserted in the mouth and the most of the areola. The areola is the black part around the nipple. Then the lower lip of the baby will curl outwards, and then the nose of the chin of the baby must also touch the breast. That will assure you that the attachment, the latching is correct. So when the baby starts suckling, if you feel the pain, you must know that is a red flag. It means the baby didn't attach well. Then you must just try it again until you get it right, until you are comfortable and you see the baby is feeding nicely without any pain.
When moms experience challenges, they always want to give up. Now let's talk about a mom. Let's say I'm a mom who's frustrated and on the verge of giving up breastfeeding. What should I do?
When you are frustrated, go to the nearest clinic to get help. Don't ask your neighbor or your friend how they have done it, because then people will tell you of their experiences of drinking this and that, which you may find that it will affect the baby. What I can tell you is relax, don't stress, because in most cases you stress, and the minute you start stressing, you are not going to produce enough breast milk, because the hormone called oxytocin is produced when you are in your relaxed state. When you are not okay, when you are not managing, just go to the clinic and get help.
Let's talk about some of the food that mothers can consume to enhance their breastfeeding experience, and some they should avoid completely when breastfeeding.
So you need to eat healthy. By eating healthy, I mean you need to eat variety of food from different food groups. Those will be your protein group, will be your carbohydrates, will be your healthy fats. Those are your omega-3 fatty acids, where we mostly get it from our fish. And most of the people, I hear them saying our fish has got a bad smell, I don't like it. I mean, if you are not allergic to fish, please mommy, eat it, because it helps with the brain development of your baby. And eat plenty of fruits and vegetables. Those will give you lots of vitamins and minerals, like your vitamin C, your potassium, and the antioxidant, which doesn't even benefit only the baby but also the mother as well. Drink plenty of water, not just water but clean, safe water. Avoid alcohol and cigarette smoking and over-the-counter medication, mummies, without the prescription of our healthcare professionals.
There's a lot of things that have been said, Ms. Matati, about women who are taking ARVs.
There's nothing wrong with moms who are taking antiretroviral medication, because then that helps them to suppress the virus. So they can also breastfeed just like any other mom. But what they need to make sure is they don't mix feed.
I'm glad that you cleared that one, because there are a lot of things that are said about ARVs, breastfeeding moms, and all of that. Lastly, what is your message to pregnant women who desire to breastfeed when they have given birth, mothers currently breastfeeding, and every family member on how they can support a breastfeeding mom?
Yes, my beautiful moms, listen, do breastfeed your babies exclusively for the first 6 months. Don't mix feed. And you don't stop at 6 months, continue and start with the solids, because at 6 months, breast milk alone is no longer enough. So we have to add so that we can have enough. And then we start giving water. From 6 months going up, we start giving water, and then we continue breastfeeding until our babies are 2 years or even beyond. So we are aware of the postpartum depression. We understand. If you have challenges, come to the clinic, present it to us. We won't judge you. We are there to support you, because we want you to make it. We want our breastfeeding rates to go high in South Africa. So, yes, all the best. And then consult to your nearest clinic whenever you have any challenges.
Thank you so much for joining us today. That's it, and that's what we had for you. Thank you so much for listening to Side by Side, brought to you by the National Department of Health, Ilifa Labantwana, and the SABC Education. Join the conversation with other caregivers on our Facebook page at Side by Side SA. Join us again, same time next week, as we talk about immunization.
This program was brought to you by SABC Education. Enriching minds, enriching lives. Bridget Masinga, weekdays on The Full Circle.
So they are really focused on Transport Month today. On the show, we're having all kinds of conversations around it, and we're going to now have another conversation around the South African automotive market that's navigating significant challenges but still showcasing resilience and adaptability. And in fact, this morning the president was giving that opening address at the conference that is happening. I think it's taking place in the Eastern Cape, if I'm not mistaken. I was half listening, half busy with other things. But the automotive market in South Africa, responsible for 6.3% of the South African GDP. I caught that much. That is very impressive indeed. Lee, how are you doing this afternoon? Is it Nike?
Nike, absolutely. I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Lee Nike, CEO of TransUnion Africa, joins me now. So pleased to steal this moment with you. I mean, let's start there by, the president today saying as a sort of a moment of welcome in his address to the industry, saying in front of him is gathered 6.3% of the South African GDP. That's quite the impressive contribution from the sector.
Absolutely. So the event's actually in Cape Town. I'm at the event right now as we speak. And it is interesting because the transport sector is actually 100 years old this year. We first started manufacturing vehicles back in 1924. And right now it makes up 5.3% of the South African GDP. So the president in his address this morning was quite clear. This is an important sector of our economy and a sector that needs to evolve and grow amidst the move towards electric vehicles and sustainability. And government is keen to support the industry to drive its relevance and contribution to our economy.
How is the sector sort of by way of innovation as well? Because I gathered this morning from the praises by President Ramaphosa that the sector was moving in the right direction in as far as innovation is concerned.
Well, absolutely. I think EV adoption, electric vehicle adoption is starting to pick up. I think for you and I alike, we are really pleased that we've had over 200 days of no load shedding. It's over 100 days of having a government of national unity. And we are starting to see consumers becoming a lot more comfortable with the move towards electric vehicles, even hybrid vehicles. So we actually saw that in Q2 of this year, there was some 5% increase in the purchase of electric vehicles. It's way behind the global move towards electric vehicles. Consider
Lee, I just want to try and change your line. It's just dipping in and out there for a second. Something's breaking our connection. So I just want to get my producers to shift you maybe to a WhatsApp and see if we can't get a clearer line. We are in conversation with Lee Nike, CEO of TransUnion Africa. It's October, so it's Transport Month, and the ladies that govern the show were quite vested in having conversations that are centered around transport throughout the month. Hence, even yesterday, we followed up on that conversation with the team that was traveling from Kenya to Stellenbosch on those electric motorcycles. An interesting sort of innovation coming out of Africa as well. If you missed that, you can double back to our podcast. We had part one of that conversation a week ago and then part two yesterday when the team finally arrived in the early hours in Stellenbosch. And now we want to have this conversation around the auto market and how it's sort of adapted to economic challenges in South Africa, and maybe where our consumer tendencies are also placed at the moment. We've got Lee back, they tell me, so let's try again. Yes, you were talking about, you've seen an uptake in electric vehicles.
Yes, we have. We've seen an increase every year for the last few years. But as I said, given that we have a lack of load shedding for over 200 days, and people are starting to see, for example, the interest rate starting to decrease, there is a appetite growing towards electric vehicles. And as I was starting to mention, it hasn't taken up as much as it has in Europe or North America, but we started to see innovation in the sector. In fact, we've seen the Chinese introduce several vehicles in this market to create a competitive proposition for consumers in the EV space.
I must admit, yesterday we were chatting to some folks from the Mobility Lab who just traveled from Kenya to Stellenbosch on the electric motorcycle. And I said to them, I'm a slow one to transform. And so I'll probably catch up with the electric vehicles in about 15 years' time. And everyone will say, where have you been? But it takes me a little bit of a while, as slick as they are looking these days. Let's also talk about the shift, just the general shift in consumer behaviors right now. Are there certain preferences that maybe we're seeing emerging from Gen Zs, for instance, versus millennials like myself?
Well, that's interesting. For myself, I'm a Gen X, slightly older than you are, and that's perfectly okay. But what's interesting is that we call this generational thinking, and the generation of South Africa, the younger generations like yourself, are showing up differently. So even though the market is quite tough, in fact, in September, car sales were down 5.8% compared to September last year. But what is interesting is that the millennials and the Gen Zs are, in fact, looking to access mobility in a South Africa that has unemployment of 33.5%. The reality is that we need access to mobility, to access jobs, and access the community. So what we found in quarter two is that almost 50% of the vehicle financing, and South Africans rely on financing to access vehicles, almost 50% came from those born after 1981. So what it shows us is a few things. One, it shows us that the youth and those born after 1981 specifically are the ones that are really looking to get mobile because they realize mobility is key to accessing jobs and fulfilling your own ambitions for your family and your individual financial health. Equally so, they want to have a different future. So we did a consumer pulse survey just a few months ago, and the same group of people that you belong to, the millennials and then the Gen Zs, they are the most confident generation about the future of South Africa. Their view was that 12 months from today, it'll be a much better financial situation than we are today. Now, of course, you can look at the U.S. market, look at South Africa, that's started to ease the interest rate, and that's some of the positivity they've taken away over and above load shedding stopping, having a GNU that's starting to work well. These are the key indicators of positivity. And the truth is that Africa has a very young population. The average age of an African across the continent is just 18.8 years. So the youth will decide how successful Africa is going forward. And the youth, the millennials and the Gen Zs are stepping up and saying, we need access to mobility, to get around and to move around and to access employment.
Absolutely. What say you of sort of the more progressive or maybe even innovative financing solutions? Because there's all kinds of financing structures and strategies now in the sector.
Absolutely. So this concept we call mobility as a service. And in effect, you've probably seen driving around the country the tinier vehicles that make up, Bolt and Lyft and Uber, these tiny Bajaj cars that are going around. And what we're starting to see is that people have become a lot more discerning post the pandemic and amidst a high inflation and a high interest rate. So what they're saying is, I may not be able to access a car, but maybe I can access mobility. So what you're starting to see is the people, as opposed to trying to finance a car and being told you can't finance a car, they're starting to look at options where you can buy a car as a subscription, the same way you buy a MTN or a telecom service or a DSTV service. You're starting to buy a subscription and you can cancel it at a much shorter period than having a 5 or 7 year financing deal. So we're seeing a lot more prevalence of flexible options where you can rent to own, you can lease to own, or you can have a car for 5 months or 9 months or 13 months, which is very different to your traditional 5 years, 6 years or 7 years. And what people are telling us in the data is that there's a move away from wanting a car because it's fanciful to realizing that having access to a vehicle accesses my mobility and accesses my lifestyle. So very discerning in that people are seeing transport as more of a utility versus a luxury.
I mean, that's an interesting sort of social shift, right? Because for a very long time, when you spoke to car manufacturers, if you've been in the presence of such conferences or in spaces where stakeholders convene, a lot of the manufacturers often spoke around how different the trends were in South Africa and how the trends were more driven by social stature and social clout. For instance, like just to name one, how we sort of use a Mercedes V-Class bus as a status symbol, whereas it's just a practical vehicle to house a family of more than 5 people. That was its intention of design. But for us, we kind of gravitate towards it more of a status thing. And now you're saying, actually, in fact, it's changing.
Well, absolutely. I think a few things are quite interesting. In this VPI report that we just published, we found that there's a higher focus in buying used cars versus new cars. And you'd ask the question, Lee, why are they buying used cars versus new cars? One, it is more expensive to typically access financing, which is a difficult thing right now. Secondly, as opposed to buying a new car, could I get a better deal by buying a pre-owned, a demo, or a used car? And another point that's super important is that people are buying down or sizing down the number of vehicles. Prior to the pandemic, a household that had 2 cars now has just 1 car. And very similar to your V-Class reference, we found that the biggest mode of body type that is being bought right now is a mid-size crossover or an SUV, very similar to your V-Class analogy. It allows the parents, the father, the wife, to put more people into the car, because suddenly I don't have much money to spend on 2 cars. If I spent less, and suddenly it may take us 15 minutes to drop off the kids, drop off mom, and then go to work. It's the practical reality. So we call this concept shopping around, and it basically tells us that what drove our behaviors, and I call the pandemic an important turning point, because the pandemic told us that our health, our wellness, our families are more important than other things. And we carry that through post-pandemic into the choices we make. So whether you buy from a high-end luxury store or a cheap entry store, a black T-shirt could be a black T-shirt. A bread could be bread. So there's more utility in our choices versus the need for wanting something versus could I actually afford it? And this notion of deleveraging, of starting to make judicious calls saying, what do we actually need as a household versus what I dream of? We're starting to live more in a reality of this constrained environment.
Very interesting indeed. And I guess perhaps that also speaks to, they always say Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and the biggest one for some would be this sense of self-actualization, and just getting down, as you say, to the needs of life versus the wants of life. Let's talk a little bit as well about, Lee, let's talk about consumer confidence, right? Because yes, we had a tiny little shift in the right direction in as far as the repo rates are concerned. And yes, our petrol has gone down, I think, 3 consecutive months now. But we are far from being the South Africa that we were 15 years ago, 20 years ago, where there was a great sense of optimism, a great sense of optimism in the economy, a great sense of optimism in households. And so I wonder how is the industry engaging consumers around that confidence, that because it is a challenge given the economic environment.
Absolutely. I was reading recently about the changes made at Eskom just since late last year, and the fact that we've had no load shedding for 200 days. As a consumer that's known of load shedding since 2008, it's remarkable that we've gone 200 days without load shedding, and that tells us that something feels better. So you're absolutely right. The FNB BER Consumer Index shows an improvement, and it shows an improvement that says, hey, just a few days ago, we got a 25 basis point decrease in interest rates, which means for a typical consumer that has a R1 million home loan and a 350,000 rand car, that's 314 rands less a month in repayment. It's the start of something. So what we do know, and I've mentioned this data point already, the millennials and the Gen Zs are very confident that we are starting a cycle of positivity. We're not there yet by any means, but we're definitely starting to see the signs. A GNU into 100 days plus, load shedding being sorted out. We're talking about Transnet and the logistics value chain being improved. things that have bothered us for a long time suddenly feels like it's turning a corner. And as the data shows us, we aren't completely confident yet, but we're starting to see signs of something that could be better.
Awesome. Lee Naik, we appreciate the time you stepping out of that important gathering in Cape Town. Lee's the CEO of TransUnion Africa, and that is where we leave it today from our end. Ashraf is standing by to take over on the other side of 3. From myself and my team, we thought we'd leave you with a little bit of Mam Letambulu and Ntate Kaifas Simenya.
SAFM, playing your music.
Top stories at 3 o'clock. Ramaphosa slams the UN Security Council and Broncos Spruit residents go on the rampage. A very good afternoon. President Cyril Ramaphosa says the UN Security Council in its current form has failed to implement its charter mandate due to narrow national interests. He's answering questions